Well, here we are at the beginning of Scorpio season, and I think it's important to note that Scorpio season is the first of the last three solar season or sun sign season initiations that we will experience in 2020. And 2020 has been a year of ups, downs, and all arounds. And I think that, we really just want to sit here and be aware that we're stepping into this final quarter of the year. And this season is marked by a really major Mercury retrograde cycle, which we're all in right now. If you're anything like me, you maybe have been going onto Instagram or even other social media platforms or getting into new technology and feeling overwhelmed. Even me as a millennial, I feel like I'm going onto technology and saying, wow, I don't know how to use this app anymore. And there is some frustration that's coming with that. But I want us to be aware of the deep, deep medicine that this Mercury retrograde cycle is inviting us into. So let's get into it a little bit. While we might feel separated from each other and from the world around us at the beginning of Scorpio season, this is a really important time to connect to what I'm going to call our team. And our team might be a literal team. It could be a group of people that we work with or that we're organizing for a better world with. And it might be people who we are really connecting with around a common goal. But your team might also be, or you might have another team in your life, and they are going to make their presence known to you during Scorpio season because it is one of the times of the year when we know that the veil is the thinnest, when our ability to communicate to our guides is really highly supported during this period of time. And I particularly feel this way whenever Mercury is retrograde, that really there's a great invitation there to connect to our team. So you might think of your team as guides, lights, ancestors. Some of you might even think of them as aliens, no judgment from me. Or you might think of them as all of these things. And over the course of Scorpio season, you will probably be in the position to connect to your team at some point in a potentially really deep and potent way. So don't sleep on this opportunity, or do sleep, and focus on your dreams and focus on creating a dream journal or a space for you to be in lucid dreaming states. All of that is going to be really supported during this time of year. Entering into communication with things that are hidden or the most hidden aspects of ourselves is really what this Scorpio season is all about. Trust that the communication that you're receiving is for you, and allow that deep knowing to reverberate through every aspect of your being. So like I said, right here at the beginning of Scorpio season, Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio, and Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, is also retrograde. So we are really invited into this deep exploration of the hidden in ourselves and in the world around us. And on the very first day of Scorpio season, the moon is in Capricorn. And I've been watching these Capricorn moons all year because when the moon is in Capricorn, it transits over the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction, historic conjunction that we're having in Capricorn this year, that if you're watching my astrology video, you've probably seen a lot of conversation around this. And when the moon is in Capricorn, it can invite us already into a more state of darkness or emotional darkness. And so being that we're entering into a season that's really about celebrating darkness, we might feel that very intensely at the outside of Scorpio season. So while the inner darkness might be a little closer to the surface than some of us are potentially comfortable with, We can also really listen to that invitation and reflect deeply on all of the ways that we have grown and changed this year. Because whether you have been doing it super consciously or unconsciously, we've all been exploring the inner parts of ourselves over the course of this year as we've been more disconnected from what our lives have normally looked like. If it feels right for you, mourn or celebrate or sit in a dark room and practice communication with the invisible. Allow yourself to think what you need to think and feel what you need to feel. And if it feels safe to communicate it to somebody else, do that. Or if it only feels safe to write about it or create or make art, then make space for that as well. But find a place to funnel your reactions and your emotions at this time. So for the first week of Scorpio season, we're beginning on Thursday, October 22nd. And like I've said, we're being invited into looking deeply into ourselves to support necessary personal growth. So consider this season an initiation and know that you have all of the resilience that you need to move through it. On October 24th, we will find it easier to review our responsibilities and take a more detached approach as we make decisions about what will remain on our plate for the rest of this year and what maybe needs to be delegated. We might need to be a little aware of being too business oriented, but for people who have emotional attachment when they're making decisions, this is a really great time to remove extraneous responsibilities and not worry that you're being, too heartless or something like that. So take advantage of that day if that's something that you struggle with. Deep review and reflection is the focus on October 25th, when the Sun and Mercury retrograde are exactly conjunct, marking the midway point of the Mercury retrograde cycle. There is a potential for secrets to be made or revealed around this period of time, and also reactions that come from a place of shame. Mercury will re-enter Libra, still retrograde, on October 27th. And our deep reflections over the previous days and weeks might motivate us to criticize or nitpick on details we think others have missed. Venus is at the very final degree, like literally the very, very end of Virgo when this shift happens. And this placement can make us unnecessarily critical of others at times. Sometimes it's necessarily critical of others. So if you're unsure if your criticism is warranted or if you're just on edge, it's good to wait and remain calm for a few days or even a few hours. Could make a big difference with this transit, because Venus will enter Libra on October 27th. So be patient on that day, and if you can, give it a couple days and see if you still feel the same way. That might be a good course of action. Venus is at home in the sign of Libra, so matters of relating and creating can become more harmonious once Venus finally moves into Libra. In the second week of Virgo season, we have a full moon in Taurus on October 31st. This full moon could bring an unexpected but harmonious completion with Uranus exactly conjunct the moon. It could be a very liberating time where we feel super connected to ourselves and the people we care most about. Some of us will be asked to hold space for others during challenging times when we are lacking motivation for ourselves. Boundaries is the key word here, and I've seen so much communication about boundaries recently, and it's going to be a big deal really for the rest of Scorpio season, learning about setting healthy boundaries and what does that look like. So part of the reason is that Mercury, which will be retrograde at least for part of this time, in this week, it will be in Libra and square to Saturn in Capricorn. And we're going to have some transits like this over the course of Scorpio season. So When we're thinking about boundaries, one of the things that's a kind of a helpful reframe for me has been that it's not that we shouldn't show up to emotionally support other people, like our friends or our family members or fellow workers. Rather, that we need to make sure that we're nourishing ourselves and our own emotional root system so that we can truly show up in service for other people. Ultimately, these negotiations that happen are meant to make sure everyone gets what they need. But also at this time, anything that is set, any boundaries that are set, will need to be revisited after Mercury stations direct. So don't get too attached to the present outcome and know that it's probably not set in stone. On Election Day in the United States, November 3rd, Mercury stations direct. And with the moon in Gemini conjunct the North Node, the path forward will be clear, or clearer. But just and fair communication will be challenged by generational power, rules, and individual reactions and motivations. On November 6th, we might already be revisiting those boundaries or agreements that we set earlier in the week regarding communication in our relationships or restrictions to our creative process. A detail left out or lack of harmony between people in the group or the team might force us to reconsider those agreements. In the third week of Scorpio season, Mercury will re-enter Scorpio, this time direct, on November 10th, leading us into the final days of a deep period of reevaluation. What we've been mulling over for the last couple of months needs to be expressed or reacted to. And while our call to action is strengthening, the moon will be in the darkest part of its cycle as we prepare for the new moon in Scorpio. This is one of the most thinly veiled times of the year, and communication with our team, as mentioned previously, will be highly supported at this time. Where there's internal shame, there is an invitation to destroy long-held power dynamics within our own psyche. Fire the overly critical manager within you and ask yourself if that is a teammate that you still need around, or if it's time to demote them for a more supportive leader. On November 9th, Mars finally stations direct for the first time since September 9th, giving us new motivation to act rather than react. With knowledge from the past, we are able to take action on the future, feeling more deeply connected to our true soul, wisdom, and desire than we have all year. In our final week of Scorpio season, we begin with a new moon in Scorpio on November 14th. This new moon supports our ability to set clear intentions and boundaries around our commitments. We've been through a long and deep inner journey, and while we're not quite done, we have acquired a vast amount of information from our deep reflection process. There's a sense of security that comes from this inner knowing. And at this new moon, we can rise above the changes and challenges that have plagued us all year and be clear about who we are and where we stand now. Venus in Libra makes a square to Saturn in Capricorn, motivating us again to draw boundaries in our relationships that will create a more harmonious future. Here, we might look back to any negotiations that were happening around that November 1st to 6th timeframe and check in on how our team members are feeling about those agreements. On November 21st, Venus enters Scorpio, inviting us to relate, create, and take action from our deepest desires. The Sun enters Sagittarius, one of the last solar season initiations we will experience in 2020, and this leads us into a season of rewards for all of the challenges that we've been asked to face in 2020. I hope you enjoyed this astrology update, and if you did, I hope you'll click subscribe below. And there you'll also find some information about my free offerings, including a guide to understanding the moon cycle and how you can use the moon to understand your own moods and emotions, and also a free guide to dissecting and understanding your natal chart.